So I recently purchased some new fish for my 100-gallon reef, and I figured this would be a good time to do a quick video and show you the steps that I take when adding them to my tank. What's up everybody, I'm Jason with JCS Reefing and welcome back to another video. We are going to make my way out into the garage and show you sort of how I add new fish to my current tank that is running in my house. Now in the garage I do have a 20-gallon long tank. There's nothing fancy about this setup. I did kind of do a DIY of this and made it sort of a peninsula all-in-one style tank. Currently I do have 3 fish that are in this tank. Now this tank is not really a quarantine tank. This tank, literally I get new fish, I put them in here with a power head and some very minimal filtration with ammonia alerts and a pH alert. Now I definitely would suggest, if you're going to set up any type of quarantine tank or observation tank, which this is, to have an ammonia alert in there to let you know if your ammonia gets ever too high in the tank to do a water change. Now I do have currently 3 fish in this tank, and this tank is basically lit by a 4-bulb T5 fixture, which I only run 2 bulbs because it's just basically observing the tank and observing the fish. I cap it with a piece of plexiglass to kind of help keep the evaporation down. I do have a DIY auto top off, but I rarely even use that because there's just so little evaporation with that top on there. Now the filtration is pretty basic. Like I said, all I did was silicone this compartment type filtration all in one spot, and use a small bag of carbon mixed with a little bit of GFO to help just polish the water a little bit and keep some of the phosphates down a bit. Now as far as the mechanical filtration, it's pretty basic. There's a filter sock that lays on top of a layer of filter floss. So basically the water just comes through the overflow, goes down and goes through this coarse pad, which kind of separates the mechanical filtration from the maxi jet that's pumping it back into the tank. Now I do use a random flow nozzle on this to just kind of give it a little bit more flow, a little bit more oxygen to the water. And to heat it and cool it, I use one of the Inkbird. Basically it has a heating and a cooling channel in it. So one plug is for heat and the other plug is for cooling. And as far as heating, it's a 200-watt cheap aquarium heater. And for cooling, I robbed this fan off my daughter's stroller, and I guess we probably purchased her another one. At least we hope I did. But yeah, I use that to cool it down. So if the temperature gets up too high, that fan will kick on and just blow some air over the top of the water. And if it gets too hot, I actually take the top off the tank and blow it across the water to do evaporation cooling. Now as far as the tank, like I mentioned earlier, this isn't a quarantine tank per se. There's no copper, there's no medication in it. This is simply just for me to add new fish into this tank. I let them sit in this tank for anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks, and I want to get the fish eating. I want to get them fat and healthy before I add them to my tank with some of the other devils that are in there. And sometimes they're not very kind to new fish. So yeah, I get them eating, and especially the copper band. This is the first time I've ever bought a copper band, and I really wanted to make sure that he was eating, which he is now. And I'm feeding it brine shrimp, and I use a little like disc with a rubber band, and I actually put the frozen brine shrimp on that disc, and it'll I turn most of the flow off with the exception of the return pump, and yeah, it goes up to that disc and kind of picks the brine shrimp off. So that's been working well. Now if any fish does show signs of ick or any type of disease, I actually take the water from that 20-gallon tank and I put it into this Rubbermaid bin here, where I will treat every fish that's in that observation tank, because they're all together obviously, so that in hindsight they all will have the same disease. I do put it in this black Rubbermaid bin as needed basis, and I'll treat that with copper, and I'll just put a simple white LED light over it at times to turn it on, and that actually seems to be working pretty well. Now, once the fish have made it through kind of the quarantine-ish observation area, I do come into my new or into my tank, and I use a DIY acclimation box. Now this, as you can see, is nothing fancy. It's simply 4 sides with a bottom of egg crate held on by a old mag float cleaner from one of my older tanks. And as you can see, there is a fish in there right now. That's a yellow tang. It was previously in the tank in the garage for about a month. I put it in my tank. He was getting bullied, took him back out, put him back in the acclimation box, and we're going to leave him there for probably another couple weeks, and we'll try that all over again and see how that goes. Now, as far as the steps, that is pretty much what I take when I add new fish. I observe them for 2 to 4 weeks. If I need to treat them, I do, and that is pretty much all there is to it. Now, if you like this video, please hit that thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe, and happy reefing. Cheers.